Good morning. It is, if I'm correct, June 28th, and we are just after getting over some of the heat of the summer, the first heat of the summer, which was pretty rough and destructive for many home lawns locally. Most of the golf courses, I think, came through it relatively unscathed and kind of getting ready for the summer, but the cool down is going to be very much welcomed. Online today, we got Dr. Xiaowei Wu, we got Dr. Dave Gardner, we got Dr. Dave Shetlar, and Dr. Tyler Carr. Dr. Gardner, take it away on the weeds.
Good morning, everybody. So I got a couple of interesting emails this week, but I kind of liked this one. So this is trumpet creeper, Campsis radicans. So people plant this as an ornamental vine, and it's native. And so since it's native, by definition, it can't be an invasive plant, but the flowers are very nice looking, right? But it sure can be kind of a pain in the hide. So these pictures were provided by one of our viewers, and this is trumpet creeper growing in his lawn, having come from the other side of its driveway. So it's coming all the way under his driveway and then poking up in his lawn. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. I wouldn't think that this would be able to survive repeat mowing, but if you do see something like this, I mean, every now and again, we see ornamental plants that misbehave, but generally speaking, when that happens, triclopyr is probably the best option to attempt to control if it's in a turf environment. If it's in a landscape environment, you can control sprouts with glyphosate, but you can also, like in this particular picture here, there is a way that you can prune the roots. Basically it's kind of like vertical mowing, but different. I would look online to make sure that you do that correctly and don't accidentally kill the plant. But the whole point is to prevent the roots from coming under the driveway so that they don't sprout on the other side of it. Now, it's the end of June, and I see right now a lot of our clover-like plants blooming. So things like birdsfoot trefoil and black medic, which is actually an annual, and then white clover. So these are all in bloom. And if you have an issue with these are the three actives that are helpful. So MCPP, clopyralid, and fluroxypyr. Although honestly, dicamba is pretty useful for the control of clover and related species as well. Remember that clopyralid can only be used on golf courses, and it's not actually spelled with two P's as I look at this here. I thought I proofread the slide. But one thing that I would mention is that while you could spray those now, you get better long-term control of trefoil and white clover if you use an ester formulation in the fall, because those are perennials. But getting back to our conversation about no-mow May, a lot of these weren't really in bloom so much in May, and you see a lot of them right now. So, going forward, if we are going to have this as an idea, this no-mow May, I still think it should be no-mow June, because not only is the grass not growing as much, but all of the clover-like species are actively in bloom. So the kalingas and the sedges are also pretty active right now and becoming more noticeable. Yellow nut sedge is more than likely what you have, but the easiest way to tell is to let it go to bloom, although kalinga spreads by rhizomes, whereas nut sedge just has bulbs. So that's a pretty easy way to tell the difference as well. But if you have either of those, then Basagran is a contact herbicide, but has a fairly long residual activity, I find. Dismiss acts very quickly. Maybe doesn't have as long of a residual. And then compared to these herbicides that are all related, Sedgehammer, Solero, and Archon. Archon is the new liquid formulation of Vexus. Pyrimisulfan is the active ingredient put out by PBI Gordon. Starting to see a lot of this because, we had that hot, dry weather, and so nobody was mowing their lawns so much, but these are starting to sprout up all over the place. They usually won't survive repeat mowing, but this is American burnweed. So this is actually a summer annual that gets up to 2.5 meters tall. Just maintain your mowing schedule, which is difficult or something that we don't tend to do during drought periods. And so that's why this becomes more visible. You can also use repeat applications of three-way herbicides that contain triclopyr, but honestly, the repeat mowing, once you start mowing the lawn again because the grass is green and actively growing, then this American burnweed should start to go away. And then finally, I had a couple of questions. Is there such a thing as a selective control for quackgrass? Because quackgrass is relatively later to go dormant compared to the other cool season grasses. And so this one becomes more visible when Kentucky bluegrass goes dormant. And the bottom line answer to that is no. no, not really. There was one trial that I did in the year 2007 where I used sulfurylsulfuron, so certainty, over dormant Kentucky bluegrass, and I was able to get selective control of quackgrass. Do I recommend that you do that? No. Certainty is not labeled for use on cool season turf for a reason. You can cause a lot of problems. In other words, you might only think that your Kentucky bluegrass is dormant and you end up getting control of both the bluegrass and the quackgrass. So there really isn't a selective way to control quackgrass in cool season turf. I'm going to actually stop there and leave that subject for another week.
Dave, I wanted to mention that a few years ago, I did have a little patch of quackgrass on the side of my garden, and I mowed it down low, and the quackgrass comes up a lot faster than the bluegrass that I had, and I was able to use one of those wickers to wick the tops of it, and did a pretty good job taking it down and not killing all the rest of my lawn.
That's actually, I like that. I like the ingenuity there.
Necessity, the mother of all invention. All right. Thank you, Dr. Gardner. Dr. Wu, insect information.
Good morning, everyone. I just have two things to mention. Sorry, no insects today. Dr. Dave Shetlar will cover that. And one thing I want to mention is that okay. So a few weeks ago, I mentioned that we are conducting a statewide survey of plant parasitic nematodes in golf course greens in Ohio. And the survey will start next Monday, on July 1st. So this is a reminder for golf course superintendents in Ohio. We have dropped off the sample bags in the 6 locations across the state. So they are now available to be picked up. And I will encourage you to do so and take samples on July 1st and return samples to the locations nearby. And I will arrange someone to pick them up. And another thing I want to mention is that I will be out in the next 3 weeks, and my graduate student Henry Rice will join the team to talk about his research and also share some updates as well. That's what I have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. Dr. Shetlar.
Sort of a couple of general things. First here, I'm getting reports from people, even Joe Rimmelsbach, for those of you that are out there that remember Joe, sent me a picture this last week of something digging up his lawn. And he put out a trap, and 3 raccoons later, he thinks he's got all the raccoons stopped. And I put out a trap. I thought I was going to get a groundhog in my backyard, and yesterday morning I was greeted with a raccoon in my trap. These are digging around right now. Generally, the mass chafers and the Japanese beetles should be emerging and out and around. But if you've got a good earthworm population, remember that both skunks and raccoons go after earthworms that come up at nighttime. But the one that really is worrisome to me is that if you do find a couple of big grubs at this time of the year, what you're dealing with is second-year May-June beetles. And so I wanted to mention to you that if you find any large grubs at this time of the year in the turf, it's not one of our normal grubs. It's usually the 2-year May-June beetles, and there's not much you can do about it. They're getting ready to pupate, so they may have actually stopped feeding at this point in time. There's not much that you can probably do to kill them. However, if you're applying your normal grub controls, it should take out the first year of those May-June beetles that could also be in that turf grass. The other thing that I'm getting some questions on, people are telling me that they're seeing lawns that look like this, and they wonder if they've got chinch bugs or not. To me, there's a big difference between chinch bugs and bluegrass bill bugs. Bluegrass bill bugs, when they damage turf, it turns sort of an ashen gray color. When chinch bugs damage turf, it's more of a yellowish color as it goes down. The easiest way to tell, of course, is that if you've got turf like this that looks like maybe it's gone dormant, but you're not sure, get out of your truck, go over into that lawn, and do the tug test. Grab a hold of some of those gray stems, pull them out. If they break off easily, and again with your hand lens, if you check where the broken stems are, if they're filled with this sawdust-like material, that's the frass, the fecal pellets of the bill bug as the bill bug larva is burrowing down through that stem. You can continue to diagnose this all the way into October. I've had people that have called me out in September. They say, my lawn's not recovering. It's not growing back in. Do the tug test, and you can still find that fecal pellets in there. And of course, at that point in time, the turf is dead, and the only option that you've got is reseeding. And so if you've got an extensive lawn situation that looks like this, and you do diagnose bill bugs in there, this is not going to recover. The perennial ryegrass and the tall fescue are bunch grasses in there. They're not going to fill that back in over the summertime. So you better just plan on a reseeding event this fall. What I would recommend, if possible, if I were going to recommend to this homeowner, try to install a turf type tall fescue. Our tall fescues usually have enough endophyte in them to prohibit getting bill bugs the following any subsequent season, and endophytic turf grasses are highly resistant to chinch bugs. So you'll eliminate two of those pests. You won't eliminate white grubs, but you can eliminate those other two common pests that we have in home lawns. Let's see if I can stop sharing here. Okay, that's all I've got right now. We are seeing good flights in a couple of areas of Japanese beetles. And I always get worried. People notice Japanese beetles, but they don't notice the mass chafers that typically are flying at nighttime. And so since I run a light trap, I know they're out there, at least here in the Columbus area. The mass chafers are beginning to peak. The Japanese beetles are still in their emergence phase and probably will peak next week or the week after that. So if you're going to be considering grub control, now into the middle of July would be those ideal times. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Everybody else is taking a deep sigh of relief, and Dave's going, "Oh no, I got more debt and destruction for you." Thanks, Dave. That's really helpful there. The dog even likes that, right? Dr. Carr, follow that up with something more positive, please.
Okay, here's a little positivity. This shows us the 7-day previous rainfall, and we needed it. We needed the rain. We're seeing, in most of our state, over an inch of rain this past week. I'm seeing a little bit of recovery of dormant Kentucky bluegrass and some tall fescues. And we're also expecting more rain as we go through the next 7 days. I mean, there are some areas in that north central to northeastern part of the state that could be getting, well over 1.5 inches or 2 inches. So my recommendation right now is to, even though your grass may be drought stress or exhibiting those symptoms, we've had rain, it's just not recovered yet. My recommendation is to slow down on the irrigation for now. Probably going to get some more rain this weekend, and the temperatures are going to be cooler. That's going to allow for some recovery, but then later next week, it's going to be pretty rough with some temperatures, some low temperatures in the 70s in much of the state. And so if we don't turn irrigation off during that time and we're overwatering, it could lead to, I dare say, death and destruction. I'm starting to see on tall fescue in the Columbus area some leaf spot popping up. That's more observed on areas that haven't been fertilized very much. But we're kind of in a wait and see period right now. If your grass looks stressed out, stay off of it. Mother Nature may be giving us a little bit of a break from the drought, but the heat and the humidity and the disease pressure is not going to slow down next week.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. The only thing we came across up this part of the country this week was potentially some issues with summer patch. Now we're off. That's getting confirmed because it's got some other potential issues that have popped up. Dr. Shetlar and I were talking about phytoplasma. So we've sent off some samples for PCR analysis actually down to University of Florida. So we'll see what happens there. As Dr. Carr said, recovery is obviously ongoing, but be careful. Based on the heat and things like that, it may be a better off option to wait and see on the fertility applications as well. If you're in a rush to green things back up, then iron and iron only. That will be the smart play. With that, folks, we will wrap it up. And next week, it's going to make it a little bit quirky as far as the holiday period. We will play the wait and see game on that as well, as far as getting the turf team times out to you around that period. Again, recovery, take it easy. As you can see, our website, buckeyeturf.osu.edu. And then the various social media handles, whether it's OSU Turf on X or Twitter, OSU ATI Turf, and then the podcast is there as well. With that, we'll say thank you to everyone, and we will see you all next week, hopefully.